Questionable Ethics, Chapter 2, Inflammatory Actions. I walked beneath the savannah sky for quite some time. Having left the train station far behind me, the sun above heated my clothes and body. It reminded me of Black Mesa and the deserts of New Mexico that surrounded it. It reminded me of my demise and my last moments in that life that I knew. The life that I loved, but at the same time, it reminded me of home, and the life I left behind before I joined the Marines. I could see my hometown, Winslow, Arizona. The landscape there was very similar to the deserts of Black Mesa. I could see the white cracked sidewalk pavement that I used to tread upon while heading to and from high school, the store, the barber shop, the basketball field, and well, pretty much everywhere. Gas wasn't cheap, and I drove when I needed to head out of town or to work. I could then see the sun-bleached asphalt of the roads I used to drive. The paved lines used for traffic control faded, whited out with the passage of time. I could recall the many mornings and evenings going to and from work in my car, while I wasted my life away at a fast food restaurant. It was located near the far side of town, right by the entrance and exit of Route 40 that ran along the side of the town. I hated that job. I could remember sitting in that fast food nightmare for 2 long years of my life. I was forced to cater and serve people in such an undignified and emasculated manner, all the while with a fake smile on my face. I got talked down to by a total stranger while they ranted and ravelled over the stupidest of mistakes or imperfections, and of course, I caught flack from my manager for doing nothing wrong almost every month. Plus, on top of that, I had high school I needed to deal with. While it was mostly tame compared to the other students' experiences, I still had mountains of homework I needed to choke down every night while working part-time. But on the bright side, high school for me was a very important and enjoyable part of my life. I couldn't remember grade school and middle school was also a blur, but my time at Winslow High made me who I was today. I made friendships that lasted, participated in sports that I loved, and developed myself into an independent thinking human being. Being in my junior years, that was when I decided to get that part-time job the moment I turned 16. I started my employment there in 1988, and I quit once I turned 18. I received my high school diploma in 1990. The day I quit was the best day of my life. I still remember it fondly. I remember I walked in there that day after graduation with the biggest smile on my face. I strode into my manager's office, gave him my uniform in a nice big ball of wrinkled clothes, and I said I quit as fast as I could before turning my face to him and walking out of there, never to return. The day I walked out of those doors, both from high school and that damned restaurant, the same day I walked through the doors of my local recruitment office and joined the United States Marine Corps. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. The time that I spent serving my country was the time well spent. I made plenty of friends with men that I could count on in and out of combat, and I was headed to places that would have destined me for greatness. But the life I knew was abruptly stopped and subconsciously cancelled, for I was now lost in a land I didn't understand, walking a savannah that I didn't know, and headed to a destination that might not even be there, dooming me to walk onwards for eternity with no resolve in sight. If I had the choice, I wouldn't have chosen this terminal wandering damnation. I'm not sure anyone would have, unless they really hated themselves, or they were a masochist. I would have chosen to continue fighting for my country, to die in combat, or to at least go home, but I didn't get a choice, as my freedom was robbed away from me the moment I stepped foot into Black Mesa, or, well, I guess you could say, crashed into it. And it was all because of that asshole in the blue suit. And the more I walked and the more that I thought about it, all that I could have been forced to leave behind the anger that I got. For as my heartbeat began to deepen with this rage, my blood slowly began to boil as images of my home began slide showing in my head. Memories of my family, friends, pets, and battle buddies all came marching forward in an insulting onslaught of all the good times I had been forced to give up. It was the maddening now, some might say, that I was being a bit selfish and hypocritical. After all, I joined the Marines with the sole intention of serving my country, and a part of that servitude is giving your life so that others may live. But this was nothing like that. At least in serving my country, I knew I was fighting for something I wanted to die for. But here, I had none of that. That G-Man looking bastard stole my life from me. He stole my family, my home, my country, my battle buddies, and most importantly, my honor, my pride. He took everything from me. My blood had been brought to a bubbling hot, syrupy boil. My teeth beneath my lips gnawed and ground against each other as they slowly revealed themselves behind my mask, and my fist gripped harder around my rifle as the body of the weapon began to shake violently. So violently, in fact, I felt I could have snapped it in half. I could feel another outburst coming, with the same pressure akin to that a pressure cooker reaching critical. And since I was alone at the moment, I saw no reason in containing myself, much as before. Enraged, I threw the carbine down while it was still connected to the weapon sling. It swung out briefly before it slammed into my hip. I reached up and grabbed my helmet could have crushed the Kevlar casing. It got thrown to the ground and slammed into the sand, bouncing once in place. I did the same with my mask. I ripped it away from my face with almost enough force to damage it, as it did too, got hurled to the sand. My mind at the time wasn't focused on their preservation. In fact, it wasn't focused at all. I could have only feel anger coursing through me. My hands quickly returned to my head as I grabbed onto the fibers of my crew cut, before I ripped strands of my hair from my scalp as I screamed into the air in resentment, the pain non-existent as my rage came out. I screamed. My clenched fist flew down from my head as the hair I grabbed fell from my flexed hands as they froze in front of me. You prick, you fucking asshole, I hate you. After all I did, after all the suit I had to endure, after every little fuck up along the way, my reward for serving my country for 10 years and a pat on the back and banishment to another world. You could have just sent me home as a sign of compassion, or sent me back to my unit to keep serving as a sign of gratitude, but no, I had to be part of some fucked up military cover-up bullshit. So even if I did go home or return to the unit, I'd be placing everyone I held close in danger. So what do you go and do? You detain me for what? Doing my job? What's the fucking point of that? My words vented out of me like hot lava escaping from a volcano. As spit and tears fell from my face at the moment, I actually felt my heart in my chest beating away, pumping hot blood into my brain as my emotions took control. If you really wanted me out of the way, why didn't you just kill me? I threw my head backwards into the air as I slammed my eyes shut. Why didn't you just let me die? Kill me, you fucking coward. I'm tired of doing your bidding. I didn't sign up to be your bitch. I signed up to die in combat and protect my country. You sadistic fucking prick. This is how you get your sick kicks? You disgusting fucking asshole. Marine! I heard a voice. It came from behind me. No. It came from inside me. Marine, what is your major malfunction? Get your shit together now. My body then suddenly felt like it was being grabbed. Every muscle and ligament flexed as hardened. My bones were rigid, like steel. My eyes shot wide open, instantaneously becoming bloodshot. While I was focused to stare off into the open sky, now in physical pain, every inch of my body being screamed out in agony. Yet no screams came from my lips. It felt like I was being choked by someone, but I knew it wasn't the case, as I couldn't feel any actual physical presence doing it to me. It was just the sensation of it. But the only thing I knew for certain was that I had lost complete control of my nervous system. It screamed out in anguish while my body was squeezed like a melon in a vice. I was uncontrollably angry, and I attempted to fight against it, thrashing my body from side to side, yet nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. My breathing continued, but my lungs now gasped for air. The flow of oxygen was almost non-existent, as my whole torso rose and fell with each breath. My body now been flexed into a crescent, my arms and fists shaking as they slowly coiled inwards towards my chest. I felt nothing but rage. Whatever was doing this was going to burn. What the fuck? I managed to choke out before the voice came back, somehow stealing my voice and preventing me from talking. Shut it, you crybaby. I don't want to hear it. All this screaming and crying and anger, for what? Look at you. Just fucking look at you. You are a fucking mess. You know that? An absolute mess. And I will not stand by and let you throw away your professionalism. You are a disgrace to the corps. And if your platoon commander could see you now, he'd have you filled for a court-martialing. And I would probably support that action. The voice moved suddenly. It felt like it had grown closer to my ears. It then spoke again with a hiss, as if talking to me physically made it ill. While my anger continued to flare, you are going to unfuck yourself right here, right now, or I will choke the life out of you and leave you here for the buzzards, like the rancid pile of shit that you are. My body was then forced upward with a push, bringing me to my hands and knees. The constriction that was wrapped around me, I could still feel it, like I was fitted with a straitjacket. You, Adrian, are a United States Marine, and the Marines don't act like this when their life is on the line. You are acting like a spoiled child right now, screaming and waving your arms around as if you don't get your toy at the grocery store. This is unacceptable. You can be angry all you want, but right now is not the time, nor the place for such idiotic behavior. As far as you are concerned, this is an unknown, possibly hostile combat environment, with enemy combatants hiding into the terrain waiting for you to put your guard down. I thought about that possibility for a moment before I nodded, listening to the voice a bit more than I was before. You don't know if you're being watched right now or not. And even if you weren't being watched, you still need to be on guard for when you are being watched, which could be at any moment. My body then hoisted itself up. It did this without me telling it to do so. I felt as if someone pulled me up by the back of my vest. I could have sworn I felt my chest armor get tugged up and away from my body. My arms supported this action as if they acted on their own. While they subconsciously grabbed my rifle off the ground, then I stood up normally again, regaining my balance, even though I wasn't the one doing this. I placed my mask back on, followed by my helmet. I tried to regain control of my body. I felt as if it already was in control, yet at the same time, I was moving against my own will. Good. Now get moving. I don't care if you don't have an objective. You're a Marine. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. All odds, find yourself something to do just in case you can't make it home. This is your only option. My legs, without telling them to begin to move on their own. They began marching me forwards At first, my steps were slow and rigid, as I was actively trying to get them to stop. I wanted them to stop. I wanted control back. This was my body, and it was betraying me. But the voice somehow numbed my commands, making them weak and weaker as it grew in power. Quickly, the grasp on my locomotion was lost entirely. My legs took off into a sprint. I attempted to make them stop again, but I felt my influence get blocked and locked out. They were following this voice's orders, not mine, and I was now a passenger in my own body. Whatever this voice was, it was strong. It had taken my physical body and put it into a trance, and soon it had my mind in a trance as well. I felt its own influence creeping in and taking over as it slowly but surely forced me to calm down. I saw the pictures and memories of my home and my family fade back into the recessions of my mind, and with that, my composure returned. I was still mad about being stuck here, however, and something told me this voice shared that sentiment. But I wasn't as angry I was before, because the voice was right. And now, with a mostly clear head, I could see that, despite the physical pain it had influenced on me, and how harsh the words it used were. The voice made sense. I was acting like a child, and I am a Marine. Sure, things seem bleak right now, and I may be far away from home, but that doesn't mean I couldn't make this the best of situations and try to find a way back, even if it takes me months or even years to do so. And if I couldn't do that, I could at least live the rest of my life how I wanted to, despite me wanting a long and meaningful military career. But on top of all that, I had come to the realization this voice, this harsh, yet very grounded voice, was something I had listened to before. If not, then something very similar to it. It had spoken to me while I was in boot camp. It came to me again the many times I was engaged in combat. It was something subconscious that I always listened to without question. It was suddenly reaching out to me in a new, more direct way, and this was the first time I actually physically heard it speak to me now. This was me talking to me. Was this self-awareness? When that sudden realization struck me, I blinked and suddenly found myself in a thick savanna forest. The bleached sand and dirt was now shadowed by trees, whilst the sun hidden behind their leaves. I wasn't sure how I got here, but the sudden shift in location made my head spin like a toy top. I turned about and saw a path that I must have taken to reach this far, yet I didn't remember taking it. There was even boot prints in the dirt, showing me that I in fact traveled this distance. I took a few deep breaths as I felt the presence of the voice lift from my body. My head turned back around as I nervously looked down to my rifle. Lord have mercy, what the hell is happening? I said out loud to myself. My body felt like it was burning up, as if I was being cooked from the inside of my own armor. My blood was turning me into soup as I sweated profusely beneath every inch of my clothed skin. I could feel my uniform sticking to my back and my chest, making me itch. I felt dirty, yet I didn't dare remove my armor, as I was right in this place of an unknown, possibly hostile environment. Therefore, the armor stayed on. But this level of adrenaline was getting to me. I felt ill. I was getting the shakes. I had the feeling like I was going to vomit. I needed to find a way to calm down, and I needed to do it soon before I actually did puke, or faint, whichever came first. My eyes darted from side to side quickly, my head twisting with them as they looked for a concealed place to rest. Almost instantly, I found a small path that looked fairly overgrown, that led to a tiny patch of ground, surrounded by bushes to my left. I took a deep breath as my body shuddered, before heading towards it. Then time seemed to skip forward again, as I found myself sitting cross-legged in the small concealed patch of bushes. Taking long, deep breaths, my hands lay across my rifle, which found itself into my lap as I continued to wind myself down. It was honestly kind of hard to do, as my body and my mind were extremely on edge after being pulled apart in two different directions. I gently shuddered with every pull of oxygen that came into and out of my lungs, while my senses slowly but surely returned to me. I wasn't expecting my brain to do that to me. Actually, I'm sure nobody would have expected something like that to happen to them. Was this going to happen again? Was I okay to continue on? Was this because of the void? I wasn't sure. This fact left me in a very uneasy state, but the one thing I was sure of was that besides the pain and the sorrow I felt, I wasn't going to give up. I was right. I was a Marine. We amongst many things survive against all odds, but for right now, I was content with sitting here for just a few moments longer while I collected my body, mind, and soul. Well, that was the end of that chapter, and ooh, I like where it's going, but yeah. Also, sorry for sometimes like the mispronunciations of words and kind of restarting it. It's kind of late when I do these things and post them, so I just don't really have enough motivation to go back, but I'll probably be going back to kind of some of the parts that are a bit long. But if I do, you won't notice them. But I also hope you enjoyed the chapter. And I should have the next one out by tomorrow. If I don't, it will be after that, because I've been keeping that schedule. But this is getting pretty long. I'll continue on with this tomorrow, maybe. So, stay golden. Good afternoon, or good night. Questionable Ethics, Chapter 2, Inflammatory Actions.